born and raised female. I was pretty comfortable presenting as that, until I got to college and my worldview got opened up a little bit more. I just
Hmm.
never felt 100% like the other girls. I didn't only have, excuse me, crushes on boys, things like that, but I grew up in a very, not even a religious town, but just a very small town where there wasn't a lot of variety.
Hmm.
So I didn't know things like non-binary or transgender or queer until I got to college. And then was like, okay, this kind of makes sense why I've been feeling the way I'm feeling. Maybe I identify as some of these things. In college, in the same hallway where my dorm was, there was also this person that lived there that was also born and raised female, but presented very like masculine and androgynous. And
Okay.
I I was just really fascinated by the fact that I couldn't initially like tell what their gender
Mm.
identity was. And then I actually, got to know them after living in the same dorm after a while, and just kind of realize that you can just be yourself and it doesn't matter what you look like or what clothes you feel comfortable in or like how you were raised. And
I'm not trans, so I can't say for 100%, but I kind of see it with my disability. Like I have a severe disability, but if you're like, I guess it's like a normal person or normal or just can blend in. I don't think that many people really care about what you do have. They're still gonna treat you like normal, like there might be some weirdness, I guess, to it, or like a misunderstanding of it because it is weird. It is like we have to both be realistic that it is weird that a trans person can exist, but it does exist, and we have to accept them. The concept is really hard to understand, but it makes sense. But yeah, I think if you're normal or just behave normally, I think most people are okay with you. Like they're not gonna like do anything bad to you. They're just gonna treat you like a human being.
but we also have a tendency to really attach ourselves to negativity in news and in media. And I think it's natural that we want to exercise like our caution and our empathy when we see these stories. Certainly right now there's a lot of politics happening around, really anybody that's other, but especially trans people, trans kids. And really when people come face to face with this type of person that they're afraid of or cautious of, there's usually not any animosity because they're finally faced with like, oh, this person is a person just like I am.
Yeah, I see the news too. I think it's over dramatic a little bit sometimes that trans are like attached and stuff. I think most people have okay experiences, but I'm also not trans, so I really can't say 100% fact. But I think like if you did, I think most people have met a trans person, they just didn't know they were trans. They're just like you said, if we're just normal people, like you're just living out your normal life. Like yeah, you're a little different, but like at the end of the day, you're not really doing anything different. Like you're still working, you still have relationships, you're still paying your taxes. Like there's nothing really else to it. It's just your sexuality, I guess, is different. But like,
Like I was born and raised female. You can see that clearly I still present very feminine.
mhm.
And for me, like, in my mind, I know what my gender identity is, like how I feel comfortable in my body. But on the outside, my body is female and I just wear clothes that are comfortable for me. If a man wears a dress, we don't see that very often, but it certainly happens. And whether or not like they have a giant beard or like they have short hair, like other things that are masculine, like you would be hard pressed to find someone like that truly didn't understand that that person was still a man just because they were wearing a dress. So if I identify as like a non-binary trans person, even though I'm still wearing like pants from the women's section, it for me it's more about like what fits my body and less about like what part of the store I should be shopping in.
What made you make the decision not to change yourself and still be feminine in a male body or male, not male body, male self?
So I initially identified as gender fluid. So, nowadays I feel non-binary, like very much in the middle, but also, just who I am, like not lacking masculinity or femininity, but not really attaching myself to either of those labels. But in the beginning, I felt like, one day or 1 week or 1 month, I would be very strictly like on one side or the other. And then I went through a period of like cutting off my hair and dressing more masculine. And, through all of those phases, I still really enjoyed life. I deal with a lot of imposter syndrome, I would say, both in the disability community and the queer community. And, if anyone doesn't know, that's basically like when you are something or you feel something and you can be valid in that feeling, but there's a lack of representation, or even worse, there are people that tell you that you don't belong in that space or in that identity. So I've just dealt with that with my gender identity and presentation, and kind of sat myself down and been like, hey, if this is what's comfortable, it doesn't matter what other people are gonna think or say. And also, when I dress masculine, frankly, I don't look like a boy. I look like a butch lesbian, like with my hair short and a binder and a button down.
Hello, welcome to my podcast, to Mics One JoeySooch. I am Joe Sooch, and I'll be giving a mic to Davey. Davey is a trans who is in a polyamorous relationship. So how is it being trans in a polyamorous relationship?
Um, it's definitely been a journey. I think that it kind of just, works the way it works. And it's more about like the three individual people, myself included, that are part of the relationship and how we all blend together, and less about like the label of things, if that makes sense. But it's just easier to
Okay.
explain to like an outside observer using those labels.
So let's talk about your trans for a second, and then we'll talk about the polyamorous.
Mhm.
Because, so did you find yourself as trans before you enter relationships, or was it something you kind of like found yourself in a relationship?
So it was definitely the gender identity stuff beforehand. I
Okay.
was born and raised female. I was pretty comfortable presenting as that, until I got to college and my worldview got opened up a little bit more. I just
Mm-hmm.
never felt 100% like the other girls. I didn't only have, excuse me, crushes on boys, things like that, but I grew up in a very, not even a religious town, but just a very small town where there wasn't a lot of variety.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know things like non-binary or transgender or queer until I got to college. And then was like, okay, this kind of makes sense why I've been feeling the way I'm feeling. Maybe I identify as some of these things.
So like I just I'm straight, but like I kind of knew like I think everyone knows gay people just like growing up, but like I was never really exposed to like non-binary and like pansexual and such. So I was like older and like maybe after 25. So did you like just happen to fall upon like non-binary like topics, or was it you kind like did you just fall into it, or did it like randomly happen to you and you're like, oh, maybe this is the path I should go down?
So my first exposure really to, not cisgender or like not straight people, in college. in the same hallway where my dorm was, there was also this person that lived there that was also born and raised female, but presented very like masculine and androgynous. And
Okay.
I I was just really fascinated by the fact that I couldn't initially like tell what their gender
Mm,
identity was. And then I actually, got to know them after living in the same dorm after a while and just kind of realize that you can just be yourself and it doesn't matter what you look like or what clothes you feel comfortable in or like how you were raised. And so from there, I found like people on the internet doing YouTube videos and like posting on Instagram, their own gender journeys. And I studied abroad and I met, new kinds of people that way. And yeah, and then I started working at the like LGBTQ services office at my college and found even more connections
mm.
that way and eventually kind of settled in the identity that I have now, though I did go through like maybe I'm bi, maybe I'm gender fluid, maybe I'm this, maybe I'm that. So,
You're saying it was a very, very slow journey for you to discover yourself.
yeah, yeah. It took a while for sure.
I totally get it. So like so let's talk about the guy that you said was similar to you. So how did the other treat that person?
So, this person had their own group of friends and like was very charismatic and fit in really well. And I think that that was another piece of it. Like I have really
Okay.
bad social anxiety and I'm autistic, so
Hmm.
even when I do want to put myself out there and make friends and meet new people, like i I kind of like don't know how. So seeing not only this person that was so different from anyone I've ever met, but that they were treated, at least in my experience with them, like just like any other person. I think that that was really transformative.
I'm not trans, so I can't say for 100%, but I kind of see it with my disability. Like I have a severe disability, but if you're like, I guess it's like a normal person or normal or just can blend in. I don't think that many people really care about what you do have. They're still gonna treat you like normal, like there might be some weirdness, I guess, to it, or like a misunderstanding of it because it is weird. It is like we have to both be realistic that it is weird that a trans person can exist, but it does exist, and we have to accept them. This is the concept is really hard to understand, but it makes sense. But yeah, I think if you're normal or just behave normally, I think most people are okay with you. Like they're not gonna like do anything bad to you. They're just gonna treat you like a human being. Like, have you had that experience growing up, or was it hard because of your social anxiety?
I think when I was growing up, it was a little bit more difficult, of course, on a personal level because I have a lot of social anxiety, but
Mm-hmm.
also kids are, you know, humans are curious, and that's just human
Mm-hmm.
nature. But when you are a bunch of teenagers, all cooped up most days of the year together for, 7, 8 hours a day,
Mm-hmm.
you make observations and assumptions, and it can be kind of toxic. And there was like one person that we maybe thought might be gay, and another person that kind of was saying that they were bisexual. And, that just instantly made any kind of gossip about them like really, you know, like we
Mm-hmm.
don't want to talk about that person. We don't want to really associate with that person. And now it's funny because there's like so many people that I went to school with that came out as gay. And I had a pretty small class of like 200. So, even if there's like 10 people versus the zero that we had when we were in high school, it's significant. But we also have a tendency to really attach ourselves to negativity in news and in media. And, I think it's natural that we want to exercise like our caution and our empathy when we see these stories. Certainly right now there's a lot of politics happening around, really anybody that's other, but especially trans people, trans kids. And really, when people come face to face with this type of person that they're afraid of or cautious of, there's usually not any animosity because they're finally faced with, like, oh, this person is a person just like I am. They're standing here just like I am. And that happens a lot with disability too, especially people that have physical differences compared to what we normally see. You might stare or have an initial shock value and be like, what is that? But if you actually get to know that person, or maybe you see them in the news or like representation in a TV show, that mystique goes away and we just see each other as people and not this like, scary othering.
I mean, I feel for you, like when like government officials or anything, they just focus really on numbers and stuff, and they focus on the idea of it. Like if you explain like trans to someone that doesn't had never met a trans person, it almost it like makes sense, but like almost doesn't make sense. Like how can you be a guy in a woman's body? Like it doesn't compute because if you're straight, I mean if you're just heterosexual, it doesn't make sense. Like but it can kind of make sense. Like kind of equal to like some people like vanilla ice cream and some people like chocolate. You can't really force it. Like sometimes people are just born I don't know if it's genetically different, but like they're just born different things. Like not every guy can like, I don't know, cars for example. That's the mainly thing. Some guys might just like, just drinking pina coladas on the beach, that's feminine, but like who cares? Like you can both like we can both reach across the aisle, I guess, and be normal. And I'm sure like I mean every person that's heterosexual had done things that would, I guess, maybe be gay or, feminine, or if you're man, I'm woman, manly. So it's like, I think it's too uptight about it. Like we have to stick to gender norms for everything, or like if you do one thing that's the opposite, like, oh no, like now you're gonna be questioning your whole self. Like, well, yeah, I think the biggest thing is just knowing who you are as a person and what are you. So it's choose for a trans person to come out because yeah, I see the news too. I think it's over dramatic a little bit sometimes that trans are like attached and stuff. I think most people have okay experiences, but I'm also not trans, so I really can't say 100% fact. But I think like if you did, I think most people have met a trans person, they just didn't know they were trans. They're just like you said, if we're just normal people, like you're just living out your normal life. Like yeah, you're a little different, but like at the end of the day, you're not really doing anything different. Like you're still working, you still have relationships, you're still paying your taxes. Like there's nothing really else to it. It's just your sexuality, I guess, is different. But like like you don't meet every person and be like, oh, I'm gonna have sex with you. It's not doesn't how that's not how it works. It's just normal human future. It's a little different. Like some like chocolate, some like vanilla. Like just move on. Like I don't see how it's as big of a deal. Like I can understand like if you're dating someone and they're trans, I can understand how that's conflicting for you. But like if you're just meeting people, if you're just working with them, like at the end of the day, like who cares if they're gay or trans or anything else? Like really, can you work together? Is the chemistry there? Like that, it should not be a kink in your armor, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. I really like connecting with people, and I'm very open about my identities and my experiences, and like, you can ask any kind of question you want, and if it's like totally rude and out there, like I'm probably going to answer it, but also tell you like, hey, the next time you meet a trans person, like maybe don't ask them this. But day to day, like I go to the grocery store, I go to the pharmacy just like everyone else. And, it's when people hear about things that are so different from themselves, like being trans or being gay or, you know, what have you, it threatens a lot of people in some ways. It threatens their perception of the world and their perception of themselves. And I think instead of looking at it in a threatening way, you should embrace people and their differences because, you know, I have to go home and eat dinner and go to bed and use the bathroom the same way that you do. Like we're all the center of our own stories.
Yeah, the concept is weird, but like, like just meeting the person, it's really not a big of a deal. It's not like you're gonna come and like attack me with your trans or anything. It doesn't have had nothing to do with anything else. It's just like another character trait of you.
Hmm.
And like at the end of the day, you're not. I mean, maybe you're a murderer. I don't know, but like most, I'm just assuming you have to assume most people are just like harmless, and they're not like wanting to harm people. If that makes sense. Like they just wanting, they're just this way, and then they have to like live with it. And it, I mean, it sucks that people like you that you are born not you're born thinking you're not trans, and then you have to go through this whole character transformation. And I can understand how hard it is because you are against the norm of everything else, and like all this confusion and such. So I can't imagine how hard that must be for you.
Yeah, it's hard to learn how to be in a very narrow setting and then, not only learn about this whole new set of identities and this whole new world out there, but kind of like unlearning the things about yourself that you thought were true. And also, it's okay to, like, I was born and raised female. You can see that clearly I still present very feminine.
Hmm.
And for me, like, in my mind, I know what my gender identity is, like how I feel comfortable in my body. But on the outside, my body is female and I just wear clothes that are comfortable for me. If a man wears a dress, we don't see that very often, but it certainly happens. And whether or not like they have a giant beard or like they have short hair, like other things that are masculine, like you would be hard pressed to find someone like that truly didn't understand that that person was still a man just because they were wearing a dress. So if I identify as like a non-binary trans person, even though I'm still wearing like pants from the women's section, it for me it's more about like what fits my body and less about like what part of the store I should be shopping in.
So let's talk about your transformation, but I guess less lack of transformation because a lot of trans will go, they will dress or do whatever according to their sex. So like, what made you make the decision not to change yourself and still be feminine in a male body or male, not male body, male self?
Hmm. So I initially identified as gender fluid. So, nowadays I feel non-binary, like very much in the middle, but also, just who I am, like not lacking masculinity or femininity, but not really attaching myself to either of those labels. But in the beginning, I felt like, one day or 1 week or 1 month, I would be very strictly like on one side or the other. And then I went through a period of like cutting off my hair and dressing more masculine. And, through all of those phases, I still really enjoyed life. I was doing what I was comfortable with. And it's kind of like when you're growing up as a kid, you almost like grow up all over again where you're experimenting with your style and, what you like. And I've just kind of settled into this the way that I am now. And I do wear a lot of like neutral things like t-shirts and jeans or like sweaters and leggings. I think that's another part of it for me. Like, I don't wear types of clothing that are so strictly masculine or feminine. I wear things that are still very much neutral, like masculine and feminine people wear sweaters, wear t-shirts, wear jeans. So,
Hmm.
um, I deal with a lot of imposter syndrome, I would say, both in the disability community and the queer community. And, if anyone doesn't know, that's basically like when you are something or you feel something and, you can be valid in that feeling, but there's a lack of representation, or even worse, there are people that tell you that you don't belong in that space or in that identity. So I've just dealt with that with my gender identity and presentation and, kind of sat myself down and been like, hey, if this is what's comfortable, it doesn't matter what other people are gonna think or say. And also when I dress masculine, frankly, I don't look like a boy. I look like a butch lesbian, like with my hair short and a binder and a button down. So, that's another piece of it for me. Like, I'm never going to look like a boy or like a man, I guess, unless I surgically alter myself. So I have to,
Hmm.
be comfortable with who I am.
Yeah, so let's talk about your relationship with Carly. So I know you proposed to her, and I don't know if you're married yet or not. Are you guys married yet or no?
We are not. I think that we would be if we didn't have to worry about, so Carly is also disabled, uses a wheelchair, and I am their like paid caregiver. And even when I wasn't,
Okay.
you have to worry about insurance. And when you're married, you
Hmm.
combine certain assets. And basically, the government thinks that if you're married, then you have like a built-in caretaker, paid or not. So, maybe you don't need to go to the doctor as much, or you don't need, physical therapy or whatever because your spouse is,
Hmm.
right there with you. And that's just a really outdated and unfortunate way of thinking. And, I'm not sure that we would ever be able to get legally married in this lifetime. I do hope that, someday we can have
Hmm.
still kind of a wedding ceremony, celebrate it just like any other relationship. But yeah, so not legally, but we probably would have been a while ago if we could have.
You could just have a fake wedding, I guess. They did have the celebration anyway. Like you don't have to have it official by the government at
Hmm.
all. They can just have it and be like, hey, we're just celebrating our love together and gather all your loved ones together and just have a party, really. I think one is down for a party.
For sure. Yeah, it's a little expensive and we have big visions for what we'd like it to be. So that's why it's still a maybe
Uh,
someday thing, but yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's awesome, but like, how did that relationship go? Because, like, did you tell like, I mean, I did met you now, so I don't know how you are, like, in social setting. Like, if would I pick up on your trans at all or nothing? So, like, how did that go, meaning Carly? Like, were you just, like, upfront about your, like, trans, or was you just, like, she just totally picked up that you were trans? Or, like, how did that relationship, like, start?
So I have always dated. I've had, I had a boyfriend in high school, I had a boyfriend in college, and in January of 2017, this is when I had really short hair and I was still kind of experimenting with like dressing more masculine. And I
Mm-hmm.
had a boyfriend at the time and I went to a like the National LGBT Task Force yearly conference. It was in Philadelphia, so it was local. And I had recently discussed with this boyfriend about how I, felt like I was polyamorous, and it was talked about at length, like boundaries were talked about and set, and everything was going really well. And then at this conference, at like a speed dating thing, whether you were looking for an actual date or you were looking for a friend, it was very chaotic. But Carly came up to me and was like, "I'm having a party in my room. Do you want to come?" And I'm not one to take a lot of risks socially, but I was really trying at this time to connect with people that, could help me
Hmm.
learn more about the queer community. So I was like, sure, absolutely. And, from there we just clicked instantly and, had a really strong like physical and emotional connection. And so I went home and, this was all above board with my partner. But when I started saying like, "Oh, hey, like I'm gonna meet Carly, in person separately now that this conference is over," like that's when it became not okay for this person. They thought that polyamory was more like a physical intimacy thing, and for me it was a little bit more all around, which is, it's hard to explain maybe in that situation 100% of like what you're trying to convey until you're thrown into it. And, I realized that staying with this boyfriend, it wasn't going to fulfill me 100%. And it also, wasn't going to be what he wanted. And that was okay. And so we parted ways, and Carly and I started hanging out more and we started dating, and we moved in together. And in 2019, in like the winter time, we met Matt. Well, Carly and Matt knew each other from high school. So I met Matt and we just all kind of clicked, and it organically grew into this throuple situation. So now we all, live together and are in a relationship together.
So you were saying that you were dating a guy. Okay, first you were dating a guy, then you met Carly, you had an instant connection, and you wanted to explore that more. I'm assuming the relationship, I'm assuming the relationship with the guy was it established as a polyamorous, or was that something you wanted to explore?
So initially it was just like a, regular cis straight relationship. And
Mm-hmm.
so we were together a little bit before I went to study abroad. And, really while I was away, and I was away from my family for the first time in that kind of capacity and for that long, and also
Mm-hmm.
like from whatever friends I did have, and, obviously my boyfriend, and I had a lot of time to myself to think about things like my gender identity and, my relationships. And so at first came the gender stuff, and he was really supportive, like, if as long as it doesn't change who you are and the nature of our relationship, like you're still the same person whether you go by, she, her, they, them. And then of course it was more a talk about like, hey, I think I'm polyamorous. I want to know what your thoughts are, like if this is a something that you're also interested in exploring. Or, sometimes with polyamorous relationships, you can have one partner that is polyamorous and another partner that's monogamous, but obviously totally okay
Mm-hmm.
with the other partner being polyamorous. It's all about like what you're comfortable with and what your boundaries are. And, I think we were both under the impression that like physical stuff with other people was okay. But once, I met Carly, and this connection was like, you know, instantly a different like a romantic connection with another person, I think that was maybe what was threatening for my boyfriend. And, I'm trying to talk about it in a way that, I'm very clear that I was always trying to be respectful of his boundaries. And when it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't working for the both of us, we came to the decision to not be in a relationship together anymore because, there's nothing wrong with being monogamous and there's nothing wrong with, um, you know, if we were romantically monogamous, but like we did have, physical relationships with other people. Like, no matter what you want to do, as long as everyone's consenting and like everyone is comfortable, there's nothing wrong with it. So it just
Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with a relationship. It seems like a mature relationship. Like you wanted one thing, he wanted something else.
definitely.
You kind of grew apart a little bit. Like not something he wanted to do. It's like the best way was, I mean, one way to talk about it, but it seemed like something he didn't wasn't comfortable with, and the best thing you guys did was just break up so you can find something he wanted, and now you have Carly, which is great that it did work out because you did manage to want to marry her. So like, are you still in a polyamorous relationship now, or are you what? No, I think no, you're still in polyamorous because don't you have another boyfriend or? Like I know I saw a picture with you and another guy. So I
Mhm.
don't know if he was your ex at the time or you guys are dating. So I'm a little confused.
Yeah, no, it can be a little confusing. So, Carly and I, we started hanging out and, I was comfortable like trying to explore polyamory, but, again with this person that it's not something they were comfortable with,
Mm-hmm.
so we ended our relationship and, it was just me and Carly for a few years. We dated a little bit like as a pair, you know, with like a third person, but it never really panned out. So, I guess the best way to explain it is like Carly and I are totally comfortable with one another. Like as a couple, nothing is lacking. Like we're totally fine and sustainable being just the two of us. But, you know, anyone that would meet the three of us together can, I think, see pretty instantly that we have a really unique connection where Carly and I have a really good relationship and also Carly and Matt and like me and Matt being our boyfriend and then like the three of us like it's all just very open and flowing and really just like a any regular relationship but there's an extra person if that makes sense.
So, so how do you like introduce a third person? Because like it's such a because like the only example I have it kind of like my best friend at the time is my best friend now is that I like her a lot, but it doesn't really mean I like her friends as much, even though maybe they're best friends with each other. So it's like always weird to bring a not just for my personality. Like I know others are more open and like more connecting, I guess. So like, how do you bring a third person in? So it's like you find a person, you like them, and then you talk to like Carly and be like, "Hey, I found this person. Like, can we do a group dinner together and see if we all vibe together? Like that is that how it works, really?"
So it can work a number of ways. So Carly and Matt actually went to high school together and may have had a crush on each other, but never really panned out. And, Matt has historically been a monogamous person. And when he got out of his most recent previous relationship, he and Carly reconnected. And, there was still kind of something there. And it's so funny to me now because I told them I was like this boy from high school is messaging you like he wants to hang out if you know what I mean. Um, you know, it's just so funny. So I was totally okay with it with the two of them, exploring whatever relationship they had, whether it was like temporary or, just physical or it was emotional. And we all went to dinner together because I didn't want to not know this person. And, some polyamorous people, they want to know everything. Some people want to know nothing. Some people want to, like, at least know who you're with and where you are, but, like, no details. Again, it really can be anything. So from this dinner out together, I think it became clear that Matt and I also had a connection. And, the three of us had a really good emotional connection, as the three of us as a unit. So that's kind of how it started. And we just let happen what was going to happen. And he would come over and hang out. And, there was always just something more to it besides just him and Carly reconnecting. But there are some,
It's cra
yeah, there are some
Yeah, I'm
situations.
saying it's crazy to me for you that you have social anxiety, but you're also in a polyamorous relationship because I feel like it's really easy to meet people, like let's say, like just hanging out like normal people without like the sexual end to it, like I don't know, like getting coffee or asking someone for pictures, but like I feel like you took it like a step further and like you can be in a polyamorous relationship where you're meeting someone and you want to date for long term, like you live together and such, and like it kind of blows my mind how you have social anxiety, but you can also be in polyamorous relationship because I feel like you want to keep like Carly to yourself, like you don't want to have her, you don't want to let go of her, you don't want her to meet anyone, so it's all she have is you and stuff. So it's crazy to me how you have a polyamorous relationship.
Yeah, it's social anxiety, and I have a pretty severe anxiety, like in general. It just like also manifests socially, basically 100% of the time that I'm being social, whether I've, known someone forever or just met them. But I find a lot of comfort in being in situations with people that I already know. So it could be like a new situation. It could be kind of scary for me, honestly. But if I can have someone that I know and trust with me, like especially if it's like a place that I'm going to go by myself, or say I'm dropping my dog off at the groomer even. If I can go that first time with someone that I know, then I feel like I have that security blanket. And then the second time, the unknown factor is eliminated. So my brain doesn't have to spend as much energy on that. It can just spend its energy on like being terrified of, being social, which is frustrating, but I do a lot better in the company of people that I know than like on my own. So if I was on a date with Matt, for example, by myself, I probably would not come off as charismatic, but it was, different being there with Carly and especially the two of them already knowing each other.
So how is your mind coming into the podcast and meeting me, I guess, virtually? I know it's not the same as human, but like how did you guys like met me at night, like looking at my profile and making sure I'm okay?
Yeah, so for for me, I have not really done a podcast before. I did one, but it there was no video component. It was with my boss, and we pretty much only talked about work. So like the questions were expected. But for the past, we've been, you asked me maybe a week ago. So for the past week, I've been like looking at some of your other episodes and being like, okay, like this is what other people are wearing. This is what other people's backgrounds look like. Like these are the kind of questions.
Mm,
I honestly, I got up extra early. I like practiced maybe a couple times, just like,
oh,
just talking in this exact setting, like to my phone as if it was another person, and imagining maybe what we would talk about. And getting my phone angle right and making sure my headphones are charged, all these things. So, like, now that we're doing it, it's
Aw.
fine, but like leading up to that is like, oh my God, am I going to look like a complete idiot? Am I going to not remember how to say any words in the English language?
Nah, you're doing great. It's adorable. Yeah. Yeah. That's yeah, it's great to do. I'm just like thinking that Carly is like right next to you, holding your hand, and I just don't see her.
No,
Just like,
Carly is
but yeah, that's
across
all.
the house, getting
Ah,
getting
okay.
ready for the day in their own capacity.
No, yeah, that's awesome that you came here to be on a podcast. Like, yeah, and I think I'm pretty harmless. I think I'm a fun person to be around. To like, no, like get good vibes. So like, I don't think anyone would say anything bad about me. I don't think anyone has anything. I don't think anyone could say anything about me. But like, hey, you never know. But it's awesome that you came here to share your story and just be yourself, really. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So before I take the mic away from you, is there anything you want to say, promote any words of wisdom, the winning lottery numbers, mic is all yours.
Well, if you want to follow me on social media, I'm at Davy Does Things on all the things. I have an Instagram, a YouTube channel, but if I could promote anything, I would definitely, encourage people to get out there and learn more about the disabled community, about, the queer community, just never stop learning and being curious.
Pretty good words. If I do say so myself, so ditto on that. So thank you, Davey, for giving me your time and expertise. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. You can follow Davey. All of the links will be in the description below. And everyone, have a great day. I'll catch you later. Bye bye.